Well, hey there, everyone. Happy Monday. Ooh, I do not like this light. We got to fix this light. Hold on. Hold on. This is not good. This is not a good situation. Hold on. I'm not sure that's any better, but if you've been following me, oh God, that's so orange. That's so awful. I don't care. We're going to do it anyway. If you've been following me, you know that I've been dealing with light issues in my studio and I've clearly not figured them out yet. But that's okay. Because what I'm showing up here today to talk about is so much more important than light issues. Um, and it's not the normal business topic that I've talked about. So I really appreciate everyone. I see a bunch of folks watching live. I really appreciate everybody who's here today, and who's showing up for this conversation because it's an incredibly important one. So today, um, oh, Sarah says, "Hey Meg, I really appreciate your email last night." Thanks so much, Sarah, for that. So let me back up and then I'll address the email if anyone doesn't know what that was about. So, and I have notes here. This is why I have my notebook in front of me, my trusty notebook. Um, a lot has happened in the last week, and you know, this is I'm going to struggle a lot with how I talk about this, because this is a hard thing to talk about. It started on Monday with the murder of George Floyd. It's evolved into protests and riots. And not just in Minnesota, but I mean, last night in Boston, there was a very nonviolent protest going on, and it turned violent. In the early, or in the late evening hours. So, you know, it was important for me to show up and talk about this because, as a white woman, as a white business owner, I can never I can never understand what Black people, what people of color are going through right now. It's not an experience that I have. It's not an experience I will ever have. Um, but what I can do is I can show up and I can listen, and I can learn, and I can take actions that help make me be a better ally. And I think, one of the things that I've been working on over the last year, not just this week, is what it means to be a better ally. And that recognition that, for so many years thinking that I was an ally because I wasn't racist, put that in air quotes, wasn't racist, thinking that that was enough. But what I have learned over the last year or so as I've done this work is that it's not enough to be not racist, that you have to work to be actively anti-racist. And so the email Sarah is referring to is, last night I've been posting on social media. I posted several times in the Badass Moneymakers, my free Facebook group. I've posted on my business page, posted on my personal profile, posted on Instagram. But last night I decided to email my email community. And it was important for me to do that because, number one, I wanted to make it very clear to the people in my community that this was not something that I was ignoring, that it was not an issue that I was unwilling to take up or discuss. But also because I wanted to share some of the things I've been doing. As I've talked to a lot of other online business owners, we're all trying to figure out what we can do and what the right path forward is. And so I wanted to share what I had been doing a bit, because I thought that might be helpful for folks. Um, yeah, that's all I want to say about that for right now. Well, I will say this, and some of you may be aware of this if you follow other people online, but there have been several well-known online business owners who have either refused to engage in the conversation, shut down the discussion, or unfortunately shown up and commented even after critique in incredibly hurtful ways. And, this isn't about shaming someone, but it's really critical that when that happens, we call them out, which is what I know a lot of people in this community have done. And that's incredibly important. And I want to be clear, if I ever do something that is hurtful or harmful or not in furtherance of doing that anti-racist work, that I expect you to call me out. Um, you can comment on my post, you can send me a DM, you can email me, meg@megkwheeler.com. But and I'm not saying that it's your responsibility to make sure that I do the right thing, but I fully welcome um, you to do that if you ever feel as though I am not showing up in the best way possible. Because, hey, Don, thanks for joining. Because it's, look, I'm going to get things wrong. There's no question I'm going to get things wrong because this is hard stuff. It's hard to talk about. It's uncomfortable. It's difficult. It's frustrating. Um, and look, we're all human, right? We're all human. We all have emotions. So regardless of the color of your skin, a lot of people right now are feeling some tough stuff. What's important to understand, if to be an ally, what's important to understand is now is not the time to put your feelings front and center. Now is not the time for me to come out and talk about how tough this is for me. That's not appropriate. But I do understand that you, much like me, are probably having a lot of those feelings. So there are going to be days when we show up better than others. Today, yesterday and today have been tough because this is a lot. It's a lot to work through. But what's so important is that we continue to show up and we continue to do the work and that we listen when, people of color, when Black people, when Indigenous people are telling us where they're at and what they're experiencing and what is and isn't okay. And I also, just to add on to that, want to say, while it's important that we listen when they speak, it is not their job to tell us what we need to do. Um, and I will fully admit that, when I'm going to post something or, I'm going to write a letter or whatever it may be, my first instinct is to call up my friends who are Black and say, is this okay? Like, I will admit that. Because I think it's important we talk about some of these things. But it's not their job to tell me that it's okay. It's not their job to review my work and make sure I'm a good white lady. It's my job to educate myself and understand what makes me a good white lady, and what isn't, good for me to say. And so that's a piece of it as well. And I'm happy to share resources for folks who want them. I think there are some incredible books out there. Uh, um, that I would highly recommend. In fact, I can share a couple, although it'll take me a second to find links, so bear with me. But I think the more you can educate yourself on this, and the more you can recognize that as a white person, we have privilege. That doesn't mean that our life isn't hard. It doesn't mean we don't have struggles. But one of those struggles is not because of the color of our skin. It doesn't make us a bad person. It's just something we need to acknowledge, much like men have male privilege and they need to acknowledge that. Um, and so I think that's the first thing I guess I wanted to say. This is why I wrote notes so that I wouldn't like go off on a tangent. But I think that's the first thing I wanted to say is it's really important to me to create a safe space, to create a brave space for people to come forward and talk about these things. If you do not feel comfortable talking about these in a public setting, but you want to talk about them, please email me, meg@megkwheeler.com. I am always happy to have this conversation with you. If you are a member of my community, and you are, Black or a person of color or Indigenous, and any of the conversations we're having are are difficult for you, are hurtful for you, are painful for you, and you would like us to have them in a different way, so that you can still be an engaged part of this community, please let me know. I am open to that feedback, in making sure that we are creating this space not only for these conversations, but also for people to also do other things without being triggered. So that's important to me as well. I wanted to share a little bit about, and I was going to grab the link. I don't have them right here. I don't have the links. I'll put the links in later to the books. But I wanted to share a little bit about what I've done in case folks are looking for uh, actions they can take. There is a list going around, and I'll try to find the link to it. I'll do it really quickly here. Going around that I think has been very helpful. It's the 75 steps that white people can take, or something like that. 75 things white people can do for racial justice. I'm going to drop that in here. I found that incredibly helpful. not only are the suggestions good, but there's a lot of them. So you've got a long list you can work through if you're really trying to have a big impact. So I just dropped that in there. But some of the things that I've been doing, and again, I want to share this with you. This is not so I can get credit. This is not for accolades. This is because I think sometimes it's helpful to hear what other people have done. This does not mean you have to do these things. You can choose the ones that work for you, but these are just ways that I've decided to be supportive. So the first is, of course, to show up. And I've been doing that on my social media, in my email here, and I will continue to do that because I think it's important that as a white person, I don't run away from this conversation. The second is when I'm showing up is to listen. And, I know one of the things that a lot of people I've talked to struggle with is, well, I'm supposed to show up and listen, so then I shouldn't say anything, but then I'm being called out for not saying anything. Showing up and listening doesn't mean you can't say anything. It just means, number one, making sure that your voice isn't leading the conversation or isn't overpowering the conversation. And two, it means speaking out in a way that is calm and collected and helpful. One of the women, I said there were several online business owners who, unfortunately, I don't, I think did a disservice to their communities and their businesses in the way that they've showed up during this. Well, one of them, um, I totally just lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me. Sorry. Give me a second. I was talking about showing up, listening, talking. Oh, thank you. One of them showed up last night and was very emotional and did this whole video about how upset she was and how hard this was for her. And that may all be true. Like, I'm sure she's having those feelings and those emotions. Nobody's saying you can't have them. She's a human being. So, of course, her heart is hurting right now. But showing up and making it about her, showing up and saying, feel bad for me because this is hard for me, is not the right way to show up. And so, yes, it's okay. You should show up and you should speak out. But when you do it, make sure you've gotten yourself to a calm enough place. Make sure you've processed your emotions so that your emotions are not what's front and center in your message. It's something that, we call centering yourself. Don't center yourself in this conversation. This conversation is not about me. It's not about us. It's not about white women. It's about what people of color are going through right now. And so it does not mean we cannot have voices in it, but it does mean that uh, it is not about us. And ultimately, we have to remember that. I talked about learning a bit, but learning is one of the things that I'm doing, whether that's reading books, reading articles. There was actually a great course yesterday by a woman named Trudy. I'm completely blanking on her last name, but she did an almost or more than 2-hour live course or webinar for people in the online business space on how they can be allies. I've only watched about half of it because I was engaged with my son the other half, but I got the replay and it's on my list to watch for this week. So I would recommend seeking out resources like that are speaking specifically to how you can be a better business owner in this environment. We talked about speaking out calmly. We talked about not centering yourself, donating. Now, not everybody is in a financial position to do this, and I fully understand that. I'm going to talk about that in a second, actually. But one of the things I have done is donate to a bunch of. Oh, Sarah dropped it. Perfect. Thank you. So Trudy LeBron. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah dropped the link to the workshop that she did yesterday. I believe you can still purchase it, and I think you get access for like 7 days. So thank you, Sarah, so much for that. It was a really great workshop. So donating is another option. And even if you don't have a lot of money to donate, that's okay. Just even $5, $10, $1, whatever it may be. For me personally, I wanted to have more of an impact. So what I did is I actually picked a handful of organizations and I set up monthly recurring donations so that they're getting sort of the benefit of a donation over a period of time and not just a one-time hit. What else was on my list? Oh, thinking about the long-term impact of what you're doing and not just short-term gestures. There's a lot that people are doing right now, and I don't want to say that these aren't meaningful because for a lot of people they are meaningful. Putting a Black Lives Matter sign on your lawn, or going to a vigil or protest, or doing social media posts, or showing up live like I'm doing. It's not to say that this stuff doesn't matter. It does, but it's not enough. It's really important that when you think about the actions you're going to take, that number one, you make sure you're not just taking them to make yourself feel better. There are a group of people I know right now that are out there having Black Lives Matter signs printed for their yards. And one of the things that troubled me about that project is they're not having them printed by a Black owned business. And that strikes me as um, an action that is going to make them feel better, but is not necessarily having the kind of longer systemic impact that we need to have to overcome racism, that we need to have to be actively working to be anti racist. So, thinking about things like that, are you supporting Black owned businesses? Um, or are you just doing this, are you just doing symbols to make yourself feel better or to check it off the list? Like, I'm the good white person because I've got the sign. That's a short-term impact. I mean, yes, maybe it makes someone who's Black in your community feel better because they see your sign, but you know what would make them feel a whole lot better? To not live in a racist society. And the way we're going to get that is not through a sign. So thinking about the impact, or thinking about the gestures you're doing and what the long-term impacts are, if any, and making sure that you're actually doing things that have long-term impacts. Um, I was like, I just heard something. Oh, nope, never mind. Just kidding. Hold on. Um, okay, what else? Talked about creating a brave space. I talked about this a little bit within my group. So I'm creating not just a safe space, but a brave space for people to come forward and have this conversation. And I'll be learning more about what that means and how to build out that space. So more to come on that, but that's really important for me as well as business owner. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of what I'm doing right now is what I decided to do with my course. So many of you know my course, Biz Money Blueprint, normally sells for about $500. It's a Biz Money 101 course. Helps you get your money stuff set up, right? Well, as I sat back and I thought, what else can I do? And I thought, well, I really want to support, Black and people of color owned businesses, but I don't have thousands of dollars. I can't just go write a big check to Black Lives Matter or to any other organization. And I thought, well, what do I have that I can use to help? And I thought, well, I have my course. And so what I decided to do was to gift free access to my course for 5 Black or people of color owned businesses. I don't know where the number 5 came from. It was just the first number that popped in my head. And I said, I can do that. I can definitely do that. So I did that. And as you may not be surprised, pretty quickly, the 5 were claimed. But I started having more and more people reach out and say, this would be really great. I could really use this. I'm just starting my business. It is hard enough for anybody to start a business when you don't have significant capital behind you. It is harder for women to start businesses when you don't have significant capital behind you. It is even harder for people of color to start businesses. So when I started seeing all these people commenting and saying, this would be huge for me because I'm just starting my business, I thought I know exactly how I can help. So we've blown away with the five-person limit. We're now, at least for the near term, offering free access to Biz Money Blueprint for anyone who identifies as being Black, Indigenous, or a person of color who's also a business owner or aspiring business owner to come into the course completely for free. This is an incredibly important step for me to take because it's allowing me to truly support other business owners. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not doing this because I think they can't afford it. And I'm not doing it it's not meant to be a charity thing. I'm doing this because right now I'm recognizing that people of color, that Black business owners that are struggling because of this incredible systemic racism in our country. And this is a way for me to lighten the load. It's a way for me to take a bit of the burden off and help be a part of increasing the number of Black owned businesses in this country. And so for me, it's incredibly meaningful because of that mission and that impact, but it's also meaningful because of just how much I'm able to do. So I told you my course, when I sell my course, it's for sale now. Anyone can go buy it now. When I sell my course, it's $500. I think to date, we're now up to, we've granted 15 people access to the course. That's almost $7,500. I don't have the money to cut a check for $7,500 to Black Lives Matter. I wish I did. If I did, I would. I don't. But I just was able to give $7,500 worth of my course away to 15 Black owned business owners, or Black business owners, pardon me. So if you don't have the funds to make physical financial donations, think about how else you can contribute in a way that is more doable for you. All right, that was everything on my what I'm doing right now list. I want to talk before I wrap up here about what I can do better. And for anyone watching live, we've got a bunch of folks watching live. I see. Drop if you have comments or questions in the comments. Please drop them in there. Let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them. How can I do better? The first thing is with my mentors. Uh, I took a really tough, hard look at who I was listening to in the business space, and these are people that I love dearly. They're people that I've talked about a lot. Amy Porterfield, Bobby Klink, Tyler J. McCall, plus a few others. But these are the people who truly are my mentors. They're the people I learn from. They're the people I show up for. They're the people that I know believe in me and my business. And I have the business I have because of their guidance. And I will say this, I'm very it, it- um I looked this week to see if they showed up. It was important to me that they show up and they did, but they're all white. That's a problem. It's a problem that I'm not learning from someone who is not white. And so for me, that's something that I'm going to be working on is seeking out mentors and educators who are not white. Because I believe that that's a critical part of my learning. It's another way I can support Black-owned business owner or Black-owned businesses, pardon me. But it's also a way for me to get different perspectives. How can I expect to build and foster an inclusive community if I'm not learning from people of different backgrounds? Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is with hiring. I've actually done probably a better job of this than recently than I have in the past. Um, but currently, right now, my team is very small. For the record, I have 2 people on my team. We have a community manager. We're actually welcoming in a brand new community manager to Badass Moneymakers this week, so you'll learn more about her. Danielle, who was our former community manager, incredible woman. Um, Incredible woman of color. She had a baby, very excited for her, but because of that, decided to take a step back. But my team is very small, so I have a community manager and I have a VA. My VA is from the Philippines. I'm very excited to have brought her onto the team, and then my community manager is my only team member here in the U.S. Um, and so I don't have a diverse team here in the US. And that's something that I know I need to work on. It's something that as I grow my team is very high on my priority list because, again, my team is very small. But as I build out my business, as my business grows, it's something that I'm going to be focusing on. And then the last thing are my collaborations. Now, I haven't done a ton of collaborations with folks yet. That was a big piece of my business or on the radar for 2020. COVID kind of screwed it up a little bit, but it's definitely still there. And moving into 2021 is really working with other business owners to get on stages, to get on podcasts, to bring people into this community. And when I look at my list of people I know and people I would reach out to and people I have worked with in the past, it's pretty white. So for me, I know that's an area where I need to do better. And what's been good about all of this conversation this week is that so many incredible people of color have been speaking out. And I literally, in my notebook, have started writing down people that I want to get to know better, that I want to connect with, that I want to learn from. And so it's broadened my eyes and really allowed me to see who's out there that I wasn't aware of before. And so I'm really grateful for that. And so that's a piece of it as well for me. But those are the things that I'm doing in my business that I'm focusing on moving forward. And I would encourage you to think about what you can do in your business. Now, everyone's business looks differently. Um, maybe you don't have a team, so that's not something. But are you going to events where all of the speakers on stage are white, or even a virtual summit? Are you learning from someone who all of his or her guest experts are white? Are you in a community where every community member is white? Like looking around you and just seeing what the landscape looks like and then making changes to be a part of more inclusive communities, to be a part of communities where these conversations are happening is really important. And if you're still watching and you're wondering, well, why are we talking about this in the context of business? I probably should have talked about this more at the beginning. Let me just say this. I know there's a lot of people out there who say, We're not going to talk about politics or religion in this business. Like those are the things, right? We're not going to talk about politics or religion. Treating people fairly and equitably and dismantling systemic racism so that every single person, regardless of the color of their skin, has a fair and equal shot at opportunity is not politics. And if you think it's politics, this is probably not the right space for you. This is not a political conversation. This is an ethical and moral conversation. And as business owners, we make decisions every day in our business about how we want to operate ethically, how we want to operate morally. Do I give that person the refund even though they're past the refund period? Who do I want to bring in to teach into my space? I'm not going to bring in somebody who's an asshole and who's going to say horrible things about all of you women. So every single day we're making decisions in our business along moral lines. This is another one of those decisions. And I truly believe that if we are not running businesses that are anti-racist, and if we are not working towards being anti-racist and having anti-racist businesses, then we have no business being in the business space. Because especially as an online business owner, you are an influencer. Whether or not you want to be, whether or not you like it, even if you only have one person who follows you and it's your mom, you're an influencer. You have a platform that you're using to speak to people, to influence them. And if you are not talking about this, then you need to sit down. And I will never apologize or shut up about this because to me, this is absolutely at home in the business conversation, in the business space. This is a critical part of business. I'm going to leave it there because I was about to go on a rant. I felt it coming. I saw the soapbox coming out, was getting up on it, and I was about to go. And then I was like, nope, we've got 3 minutes left. This is not the time for the rant. I'm going to leave it there because I've said a lot. I'm happy to answer questions or comments in the comments if anyone has them. I hope folks take time to watch this on the replay. I hope you take time to think about what this means in your space, what this means in your business. I would love it for you to post in the comments what you're doing, help everybody else get some ideas. What are some of the actions that you've taken? And just know, for all of my, for all of the people in my community out there who are Black, who identify as being a person of color, know that I am here and I am showing up for you and I see you and I'm listening. And every single day, I will continue to try to do better because I know that I need to do better. And to all of the people in my community who identify as white, this is work we have to do. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's frustrating, but it is critical. And this is the time for us to show up and address our privilege and take actions to not just be not racist, but to be anti racist. This is so incredibly critical. All right, I'm going to leave it all there for you now. Thank you so much for watching this today. Thank you for all of you for being in my community. If you ever want to talk about this, DM me, send me an email, meg@megkwheeler.com. And just know that I'm here for you. And this is a conversation that we will continue to have because it is incredibly, incredibly important. So I hope everyone goes and has a nice Monday. I hope you have a great week. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.